After inheriting my father's oil empire, my husband asked me for a divorce, saying he needed to follow his heart. Weeks later, I received an invitation to his wedding with my sister, using the ring I had chosen. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday morning. The paper was thick, cream-colored, with golden edges. My hands trembled as I held it. The words danced before my eyes. Fernando and Mariana celebrate their union. Mariana, my own sister. I sat on the edge of my bed, feeling the room spin around me. It had only been 1 month since Fernando asked me for a divorce. Lorena, he told me that night with his deceptively gentle voice, things have changed, I am no longer the same man. No, he definitely wasn't. The man I fell in love with in college, whom I supported through years of struggles and failures, would never have planned to marry my sister while still married to me. Images began to flood my mind. Family dinners where Fernando always insisted on sitting next to Mariana. Late-night calls he said were from work. The times I found them laughing together in the garden, falling silent abruptly when I approached. Everything made sense when I remembered my father's funeral just 2 months ago. While I was dealing with grief and the sudden responsibilities of inheriting the company, they were especially close, comforting each other. Fernando even insisted that Mariana stay in our house during those weeks to better support me. My phone vibrated. It was a message from Bianca. "Sweetie, did you get the invitation? Mariana is so excited. She says she always knew Fernando was the one." Always knew. Of course, she knew. I got up and walked to the mirror. The woman staring back at me was not the same one from 2 months ago. Before, I was merely the kind face of the company, the one meant to reassure investors. Now, I was the CEO of Santos Petroleum, the largest oil company in the country. My father chose me. He didn't choose Mariana. He didn't choose Fernando. "Your sister is too impulsive," my father told me on his deathbed. "Fernando, there's something about him that never convinced me. You are strong, Lorena. You always have been." I opened the drawer of my vanity and took out an old photo. It was from my wedding day, 5 years ago. Fernando looked at me with what I believed was love. Mariana, my maid of honor, smiled at the camera. Now, I noticed something in that smile I had never seen before: calculation, determination, maybe even triumph. How long had they been planning this? How many times had they laughed behind my back? I know this is hard, but I hope you can understand. The heart wants what it wants. I stared at the screen for a long time, the words blurring as the tears I had refused to shed finally fell. But they weren't tears of sadness. They were of rage, of betrayal, of fury so deep it burned inside me. I remembered all the times Fernando had complained about not having enough power in the company. How my father never gave him the recognition he believed he deserved. How Mariana always said she would have done things differently, better. I took the invitation and the wedding photo. With deliberate movements, I placed them in the fireplace of my room. As the flames consumed the paper, a cold calm washed over me. They had made a fundamental mistake. They mistook my kindness for weakness. They forgot I am the daughter of Antonio Santos, the man who built an empire from nothing. The woman who now controlled every aspect of the company they so desperately coveted. My phone rang once more. It was Rosa, my assistant. "Ms. Lorena, the board of directors is waiting. Shall we begin with the changes we discussed?" "Yes," I replied, my voice firm. "It's time to make some significant changes to the company's structure." The first phase of my response was already underway. Fernando was still the chief financial officer, a position he had earned thanks to me. And Mariana, my dear sister, had just been appointed director of public relations, another gift from me. How convenient that the first board meeting under my leadership was precisely to review and restructure all executive positions. As I headed to the boardroom, I thought about my father's words. In business, as in life, the best revenge is success. I had never fully understood that phrase, until now. Fernando and Mariana wanted to play, fine, but they forgot something crucial. I don't play to win. I play to destroy. I had been waiting for this since the moment I received that invitation, since the first time I saw their names printed together. I knew this day would come, not because Fernando felt genuine regret, but because men like him do not regret, they merely miscalculate. And Fernando miscalculated. I knew it the instant I entered the meeting room that morning. All eyes were on me as I took my place at the head of the table, the place that belonged to me by right. The silence was almost deafening. Some board members knew what was coming. Others were anxious to see how I would handle the situation. But the most interesting was Fernando. He didn't expect this. He thought Mariana would inherit the company. Now it was obvious. The shock in his eyes. The slight sweat on his forehead. The way he pressed his fingers against the table. Mariana was not present at that meeting. She was never included in such high-level gatherings. But I knew that wherever she was, she too would be bewildered. When my father died, Fernando thought he had won. He believed Mariana would be the obvious choice, the sweet and charming daughter he could manipulate at will. He was convinced that by marrying her, he would gain total control of Santos Petroleum. But he forgot one very important detail: I am the heir. I was the one my father chose. And now, with my new position consolidated, it was time to make that very clear. The meeting unfolded as expected. I presented the structural changes necessary for the company's future, an elegant term for house cleaning. Fernando was the first to fall. With a neutral expression, I informed the board that the position of chief financial officer would be restructured, and after a brief deliberation, his dismissal was approved, without resistance, without doubt. He was never indispensable. The blow was brutal. He tried to argue. To stand up, to say it was a mistake, that his experience was valuable, but no one was willing to listen to him. He had only been a parasite that my father tolerated for far too long. When I left the meeting, I felt my phone vibrate. Fernando. I smiled. He didn't waste time. I let the call go to voicemail. In the days that followed, he tried everything. Formal messages requesting a meeting to discuss his unfair dismissal. Then more desperate messages saying I was being irrational, that he had dedicated years to the company. After that came the personal messages. Lorena, we need to talk. You can't erase everything we had. I made a mistake, but so did you. We can fix this. I laughed out loud. Did he seriously think he still had any power over me? I ignored them all until, in a pure act of desperation, he showed up at my house. I opened the door, and there was Fernando, the man who had promised me eternal love and weeks later married my sister, the same man who believed I would stand idly by while he tried to steal everything that was mine. But now he was different. His arrogance was gone. His face looked tired, his eyes pleading. Lorena, he began, but I raised my hand, stopping him. Why are you here, Fernando? I asked coldly. He ran a hand through his hair, uncomfortable. I made a mistake, he said, forcing a weak smile. I thought I knew what I wanted, but I was wrong. I miss you. I rolled my eyes. Oh, now you miss me? How convenient. What happened, Fernando? Mariana didn't inherit the company like you expected? He lowered his head. She's not you. I laughed. I laughed hard. Of course, she isn't. And you only just realized it? You thought I'd just stand by while you tried to destroy me. You bet on Mariana inheriting the company, didn't you? He didn't answer, but he didn't have to. I already knew. You played poorly, Fernando. You bet everything on the wrong person, and now you've lost everything. He tried to approach, to touch my hand, but I stepped away. Lorena, we were happy. We can be happy again. I know you still feel something for me. My laugh was cruel. Yes, Fernando, I do feel something for you. I feel disgust. His eyes filled with something that looked like despair. I was wrong. I was blind. But we can start over. I crossed my arms and looked at him silently for a moment, then smiled. Sure, Fernando. We can start over. The glimmer of hope in his eyes almost made me laugh again. But first, tell me, how is Mariana? He turned pale. She doesn't understand. Things aren't how I imagined. Aha, I said, pretending to be thoughtful. So Mariana, my dear sister, wasn't the grand prize you expected? Lorena, please, oh, Fernando, you really don't get it, do you? I sighed, feigning pity. You didn't just betray me. You humiliated me. You planned this. You laughed at me. You cast me aside thinking you had won. And now here you are, begging for what you threw in the trash. He tried to respond, but I had already finished. Do you know what the difference is between us? I asked, crossing my arms. You play to win. I play to destroy. And without another word, I shut the door in his face. Fernando tried to persist. He sent messages, called dozens of times, but I never answered. Because Fernando was already finished, he just hadn't realized it yet. And Mariana? Well, it didn't take long for her to discover she wasn't that special. Without the title of First Lady of Santos Petroleum, she stopped being interesting to him. When he finally stopped trying to contact me, I knew he had gone back to his mother's house, jobless, wifeless, and futureless. And me? I remained exactly where I was supposed to be, on top. And this time, with no one left who could betray me. Fernando thought coming back to me would be easy. He really believed that all he had to do was knock on my door, offer a few poorly rehearsed apologies, and I, the woman he had betrayed and tried to destroy, would welcome him with open arms. It was almost comical. But I wasn't interested in simply rejecting him. I wanted him to feel it. I wanted him to suffer. And I knew exactly how to make that happen. Fernando betrayed me for power. He was never in love with Mariana. She was just a means to an end. But the end never came. He bet everything on her and lost. Now, he was crawling back to the only woman who actually had something to offer him. I wasn't just going to say no and shut the door. That would be too easy. I wanted to destroy him. The next day, I sent a message to Mariana. We need to talk. Come to my office tomorrow at 10 a.m. She replied almost immediately. Why? Are you trying to save your marriage or not? She confirmed in less than a minute. I knew Fernando hadn't told her that he came to see me, that he begged me to take him back. Men like him never admit their failures. But I would make sure she knew. The next morning, Mariana walked into my office with her chin held high, as if she still believed she was my rival. What do you want, Lorena? I crossed my legs slowly, watching her with a cold smile. Your husband was at my house yesterday. Her expression cracked for a moment. What? I leaned forward. He came to see me. He said he missed me. That he made a mistake. That he wanted to fix things with me. The shock on her face was immediate. You're lying. I laughed. Mariana, darling, do you really think I'd make something like that up? That I'd waste my time on you? She opened her mouth but said nothing. I continued, he touched me, you know. Tried to take my hand. Said you weren't me. That things weren't like he imagined. Mariana turned pale. That can't be true. Oh, but it is. And if you want proof, I can show you all his messages. Or better yet, you can ask him yourself. She stayed silent for a moment, then grabbed her phone. I'm calling him right now. I raised an eyebrow. No, even better, let's go see him together. I already had everything planned. I grabbed my coat and left the office with Mariana following behind me like a storm about to break. She was furious, but not at me. The rage in her eyes was all for Fernando. When we arrived at his house, I didn't even have to knock. She stormed in. Fernando was sitting on the couch with a beer in hand, as if his life weren't about to collapse. When he saw us together, his expression turned to pure panic. Mariana, love, what's going on? She threw her phone at him. Want to explain why you went to see my sister to beg her to take you back? Fernando looked at me, desperate, but I just crossed my arms and smiled. That's not true. Lorena is lying. She wants to tear us apart. I laughed out loud. You're so predictable, Fernando. Here, let me help you. I pulled out my phone and opened the messages. Look at this, Lorena, I know this is hard, but I hope you can understand. The heart wants what it wants. Mariana looked at the screen, her face turning red with fury. You bastard. Honey, please, it meant nothing. I was confused. I just wanted to talk. She lunged at him. You wanted to talk. You wanted to get back with her, you miserable piece of trash. I could see the panic growing in him. He tried to grab her arms, but she pushed him away. I gave up everything for you, Fernando, everything. And you ran to my sister's arms like a stray dog. Mariana, please, she grabbed a glass from the table and hurled it at him. Fernando flinched, barely dodging it. I watched the scene, satisfied. But I wasn't done yet. Mariana, you do know he only married you because he thought you'd inherit the company, right? She froze. What? Fernando's eyes widened in terror. Lorena, no, oh yes. Did you never wonder why he proposed to you right after our father died? He thought I'd be pushed aside and you'd take over. He wanted the company. Mariana, you were just the bridge to get there. She looked at him, waiting for him to deny it. But he said nothing. That was the last straw. Get out of my house, Mariana whispered furiously. Fernando blinked. What? I said get out of my house. She took off her wedding ring and threw it at him. Fernando stood frozen for a second, stunned, then looked at me as if hoping I'd help him. You planned this, he muttered. No, sweetheart. You buried yourself, I replied. He looked around for an exit, then let out a nervous laugh. You're making a mistake. You'll regret this. Mariana crossed her arms. You have 5 minutes to grab your things and get out before I call the police. I could see in her eyes she wasn't bluffing. Fernando hesitated, then went upstairs to pack. Mariana leaned against the wall, taking a deep breath. When she looked at me, there was something new in her expression. You planned this, didn't you? I shrugged. I just exposed the truth. She let out a humorless laugh. You were always the smarter one. I didn't deny it. Minutes later, Fernando came down with a suitcase. He looked at us one last time before stepping out the door. When I saw him cross the street, with nothing and no one, I knew I had finally done it. My revenge was complete. And this time, he had nowhere to run. Revenge was sweet. But success was even sweeter. After expelling Fernando from my life once and for all, my priority was simple: consolidate and expand Santos Petroleum. I didn't just want to maintain my father's empire. I wanted to make it even bigger. It was a long and exhausting process. During the first year after assuming the presidency, I completely immersed myself in the business. I restructured the entire board of directors, eliminating any trace of influence Fernando and Mariana might have had. I made strategic cuts, changed suppliers, renegotiated contracts, and expanded our operations into international markets. The results were impressive. Santos Petroleum, already the largest oil company in the country, became one of the leading global players. We negotiated multi-million-dollar contracts in the Middle East, expanded our fleet of tankers, and entered the renewable energy market, diversifying our investments to ensure no one could bring us down. With every signed contract, every positive number in the financial reports, every magazine article praising my leadership, I knew I was honoring my father's legacy. And most importantly, I knew each of those achievements was a direct blow to Fernando and Mariana's ego. They had wanted to destroy me. Now they watched from afar as my empire grew, unable to do anything about it. And Fernando? Well, he didn't last long. After being kicked out by Mariana, he tried to re-enter the financial world. But his reputation was ruined. The man who once believed he was one step away from controlling one of the largest companies in the country could barely land interviews. He moved from mediocre jobs to irrelevant consultancies until eventually, he disappeared from the corporate world altogether. I heard he ended up moving to a smaller city where he works at a regional bank, a position far below what he once dreamed of for himself. And Mariana? She tried to keep up appearances for a while. Tried to act like she was still an influential socialite. She attempted to break into the events and marketing world, but her credibility was gone. She became an irrelevant name within the elite, someone tolerated out of courtesy but never respected. The final blow came when she realized there was no one left to support her. Without Fernando, without my family, and without the privileges she expected to inherit, she was forced to reinvent herself. I learned from contacts that she ended up opening a small agency and is trying to stay afloat. But for someone who always believed she was destined for greatness, living off small-time jobs must be a punishment worse than bankruptcy. And me? I won. But the truth is that after so much time focused on the company and on revenge, I realized I was missing something. That's when I met Miguel. He wasn't part of the corporate world. He was an environmental engineer, working on sustainable projects. Our first meeting was at a conference on renewable energy. He didn't know who I was. He didn't care about my wealth or the empire I controlled. It was refreshing. Our relationship started naturally, no games, no manipulations. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to relax, to trust. With him, I learned that my life didn't have to be just business and revenge. Little by little, I began to make room for other things. I still led Santos Petroleum, but now with a vision for the future, investing not only in profitability but also in innovation and sustainability. Miguel and I worked together on clean energy projects, ensuring that my father's company didn't just dominate the industry but evolved into something even greater. My life was complete. And Fernando? Oh, he tried. Once, I received a message from him. It was pathetic, a half-hearted apology disguised as a subtle attempt to see if there was still a chance for him. I didn't reply. He didn't deserve even that. The last I heard of him, he was divorced for the second time and living a mediocre life. He never regained the influence he so desperately craved. And Mariana? She never fully recovered. We no longer speak, but I know that deep down, she still blames herself for betting on Fernando and losing everything. I, on the other hand, moved on. I have an empire. A true love. And the certainty that I delivered justice, not only for myself but for my father's legacy. In the end, everyone got the fate they deserved. And I simply lived.